Hey there. My name is Bill Pavelec. This is my first podcast, and it is called Happy Body by Bill. So, who am I? Well, I've been a personal trainer for over 35 years, a body worker, own a couple small boutique style fitness centers. Currently, I am working as a program manager for a senior living community, and the whole purpose behind my podcast is to kind of share 35 years of my experience, of my knowledge, of my education. Maybe there's some bits of wisdom in there. Um, in the fitness and wellness industry to that I've used to help navigate, trying to maintain intentional health and prepare for the future of my aging. And hopefully, there's a bits and pieces that you can take away that maybe you hope to broaden your perspective on your body, your health, your well-being, or maybe it inspires, maybe it motivates. The other reason why I'm doing this is because, it's a very confusing world of information out there, especially with the bombardment of advertising that comes like literally to our phones, to our TVs. Companies are consistently trying to basically earn their rental space in your brain. And so I'm a firm believer that there is some basic common sense, but at the same time, it may not be that common because it's hard to access. So I hope that once again, there's something you can take away, something that you can revisit. Please, access parts of this podcast to maybe remind yourself of a different insight or perspective to your health and wellness, not just for today, regardless of your age, but aging. Aging is a journey and it's a long journey. So, that's a little bit about me. I'm honored to do this. Feel free to repost, feel free to share. Also, click, subscribe on my YouTube channel. So, focus for So when I was trying to figure out what is a first podcast to do, which is going to be at the heart of everything that I can start to build off other podcasts. Initially, I wanted to do posture. And as I was putting this together for posture, I realized that there was something even deeper, something more essential that had to be addressed, and that it really isn't just about the center of our health and our wellness, but also the center of our kind of our being, and that is what is at the center of us. So Westerners, we don't think center, we think outside in, but we have to start shifting our perspective to inside out. And so I kind of step back to when I'm talking to clients, when I'm talking to residents, when I'm talking to anybody who are looking to improve their overall fitness and wellness, I have to ask myself, what's the start point? And the start point I finally realized, because I was overthinking about it, was the core, the center literally of your body is what we have to always address. We have to learn about it. We have to learn how to manage it, and we have to learn how to maintain it, and we have to learn how to improve it because it is from the center that everything happens. So, this podcast is focused on core health, why it is important for posture, mobility, stability, pain management. And from the center, we can start focusing on a pain free life through a healthier core. So that's the focus of this podcast. And let's move on. So I guess the question is, what is core? We have a tendency to use words and not really think about what they mean or understand or research their origins. But when we break it down like this and we see a core of an apple, it is a center. When we think about the human body, and my question to you is when you think about core, what are the images that flash into your mind right away? My guess is, based on doing a lot of research and talking to people and asking that specific question, is you think about the front of the body, you think of the abdomen, right? We think of ripped, toned abs. But yet, that is just one side of the core. It is not, we're not thinking 360 degrees. But we now need to shift our perspective and think that the core is the center, and it is what we see, and it is also what we don't see. So, as a personal trainer, as a body worker, Also working a lot with physical therapists, I have reshaped over the last 15 years my approach to working with individuals on how to improve the core strength, mobility, flexibility, so then we can build off of that so they can do, other things with the human body. So we're going to break it down a little bit. The core really is your foundation. Now, when we think about foundation, we think about something that's stuck in the ground. But when it comes to the human body, we move. We're not stuck in the ground. So for us, our foundation, our core is at the center. But just like any structure that we need to build off of, it needs to be solid. And it needs to be also every once in a while checked in, maintained, and repaired. If we don't have a good solid core, it's hard for it to withstand the challenges and the pressures of not only time, but also of, well, gravity. We'll talk about that later on. And it's hard to build off a core, at least build something that is sustainable and lasting. So yes, we may be able to put some muscle on, we may be able to walk and run a little further than usual, but we can only continue to perform better as the core allows us to do. And so, just like a house, we need a good foundation. And in a house, when we think of foundation, while you have your concrete slab, you have your footings, you have your foundational wall. And once you have those in place, that's when you can start to build an actual base floor and then walls and then a second floor. And somewhere down the line, if you have a good foundation, you may be able to add an addition onto that house. But everybody has a certain kind of genetic predisposition core capability that there's a limit to what everybody's body could do. And perfect examples, like I am 6'2", I am about 195 pounds. I have long limbs. Well, I'm not a power lifter. My core can't handle the rigors of power lifting. I'm not designed that way. That's the reason why I was a competitive swimmer, because my body was more designed for something different. So I think it's important to kind of understand the body design that you were blessed with, that is your gift, and learn how to work with it within the limitations of it so that you can get the most out of your body versus trying to turn it into something that it's not. And then somewhere down the line, it fails you, and you have to go back and you have to address that. So going back to perception of core, once again, there's that image. When we think core, we are conditioned, at least as Westerners, to think of core as the front. And we, as humans, are attracted to symmetry. We're attracted to form and function. There's a certain beauty in the human body when it is in an optimal health. And it's something that sometimes athletes gain as a consequence of training for a specific sport. And it is something that sometimes we aspire to achieve through choice making. It could be through exercising, it could be through dieting, whatever. Either way, we think of core as the front. And the risk to that, though, is that if we're always thinking about the front, we're not addressing all the other muscles that make up the core complex. We can create instability and balance in the muscles, which then can lead to gait issues, back pain, spine issues. So we have to be careful that we're not becoming obsessive to look a certain way, or the rare moment that we're going to take our shirt off, or the rare moment someone's going to take a picture, and then therefore at the back end of our life have to deal with some of the complications of those choices. So there's what we see on the outside, but there's sometimes what we don't see on the inside. And just as a core in the middle of the apple holds that apple outward so that gravity isn't pushing it in, because gravity is pushing it in, the same thing happens with the posture. And the posture is one of those kind of indicators of a compromised core. And sometimes we don't see it right away. It's like watching paint dry, but it is happening. And you may see the aging process in people, especially older than you, where we start to see the collapse of the spine, the collapse of the posture. So there is a long-term effect to poor core health. That's the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention, because we need things center out. We need to start incorporating flexibility, strength, conditioning, so as a part of a maintenance plan for the rest of our life. So what we don't see is also the organs, the role that the organs play in our health. And when we're focused on either focused on just the front of our core, or we're not focused on core at all, which actually, believe it or not, that's more common, that people don't even focus on core as a focus for health, not only in the immediate, but also in their future, that we're also starting to address internal organ health that after a while starts to suffer from poor core health. So, as you look at the organs, you'll notice that they're stacked up. And they're stacked in a way for them to function in an optimal way, whether it be your appendix, whether it be your small and large intestines, whether it be the kidneys, whether it be the heart and the lungs. They're stacked. And when that core muscles, all those core muscles are not doing what they're supposed to do, we start to compress and collapse. And in the compression and collapsing, we're actually starting to affect the quality of the health of those organs. Breathing becomes more shallow. Sometimes you get things like constipation, or we get incontinence, or we get the other organs just not functioning well. So one of the hopefully long-term objectives for taking care of your core today is that you benefit your body and you benefit from the healthy organ functioning. So here's some symptoms of compromised core or also bad posture. And we want to look at the difference between symptoms and a source. So back pain, whether it be lower back, upper back, middle back, we have a tendency to think that is a problem, but that's not a problem. It is a source, a symptom of something that's going on. Shoulder pain, neck pain, lower leg pain, compromised balance or turning, sitting and standing being compromised, and challenges in standing and sitting. And these things don't happen overnight. They happen over a period of time. What happens overnight is your awareness of it. Slouching a lot, sometimes feet hurting or wrist hurting, shallow breathing, getting down and up from the floor with difficulty to the point where one doesn't even do it anymore. And then also incontinence can be a sign where the core is compromised. Once again, those are symptoms of a problem. So I've addressed very common symptoms that we as humans deal with. And you have to keep in mind that it's very possible to keep the human body alive for over 90 years. So somewhere down the line, one of these symptoms, you're going to have to deal with them. And sometimes you may be dealing with multiple symptoms. But now that you hopefully are embracing the idea that we can start addressing the problem being poor conditioning, to not change what you're doing, to be curious about changing what you're doing, just allows you to continue to embrace kind of your old perspective and continue to do the old way you've been doing things. Or you can decide to embrace kind of a new way of doing things. And I call this kind of pick your pain, right? So we can't go through life without pain. It's virtually impossible. But we can pick the pain that we want to endure. And there's a saying, when the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change, that's when we change. The question for you is, what is that threshold? Where you finally say, no more. I want to learn something different. I want to do something different. And that is up to each individual. But that's the reason why I bring this to your attention. It may be a little uncomfortable, but once again, there's that pain. So we have to keep in mind that along with this experience called life, pain is part of it. And there's two constants that are just come with it and come with this life. One is time. We cannot change time. It's going to keep ticking no matter what we do. We're going to be born, we're going to age, we're going to die. No one has escaped that. So we have to factor time. And what I want to address a little bit down the line is how we can start to maybe master time, take more control of time. The other constant we can't escape is gravity. Gravity is a constant. Whether you're laying down, asleep, whether you're standing, whether you're sitting, whether you're jumping, going up and down stairs. The only time is not having a full effect on our body is when you're in water. Now there's a force greater that is supporting you. So gravity is a constant. And we have to acknowledge that as part of are they obstacles or just reality? So to do nothing in itself is a choice. But in doing nothing, time is going to do what it does. Gravity is going to do what it does. And the body will still show the effects of time and gravity. What we can do is decide to shift the perspective and embrace time, embrace gravity, learn how to partner and work with it versus either ignoring it or thinking somehow you're going to outsmart it with a magic workout, a magic diet, a magic whatever. There is no magic other than shifting perspective and embracing it, and then learning how to work with it. So, there's Einstein is saying insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, which is a lot of us do this. We have to listen to the body and it's talking to us. If we have back pain being lower or upper, we have to listen to it and be curious about what's the source of that. Now, sometimes our bodies endure traumas. I have had my history of traumas to my body, whether it be sports related, whether it be being hit by a car while on a motorcycle, whatever it is, our bodies also take on traumas. And so there is sometimes a reason for the discomfort and pain, but at the same time, we don't have to create the story that we are victimized by it. We can keep learning how to improve our health so that becomes just a small chapter in the story of our life. Shoulder pain, neck pain, lower leg pain, compromised balance and turning, sitting and standing, being compromised, slouching, feet and wrist hurting, shallow breathing, down and up from the floor with difficulty, incontinence. These are symptoms that if we keep ignoring them, or we don't start tuning into them at a younger age, they're going to be harder to address as we get older. And we'll continue to repeat the same perspective and pattern. And we'll also continue to lean on pharmaceuticals, doctors, for having all the answers. So one of the also pieces we also need to factor are these external ongoing influencers that we can change. Sitting is one of those external influencers, meaning something that we choose to do, but it does have an effect. And we need to be aware of the effect, especially on our spine, on our core. The other thing is technology, mainly smartphones and computers. They draw our bodies down and in, which alters the posture and it affects the muscles in the core. So we can't live a life without them. Technology, smartphones, they're a part of our life. Sitting is a part of our life. We have to learn how to manage it. And that is an ability that takes awareness. Now, I may have created a sense, a feeling of hopelessness with the human body. As strong as we are, it is frail. A sense of helplessness, maybe even a sense of being a victim of it. Our spirit and our soul is housed in this vessel like a car. It is what we experience life through. And the sense of hopelessness or helplessness is not uncommon. The key is, what do we do to take control? And that's what we want to talk about here. The good news is we are all wired, designed for movement. Since you're an infant, your body is moving. You're unconscious about the movement. You're unaware of the movement. It's almost as if that there's a force greater than you that is dictating what your next movements are, because, well, you're also designed to survive and procreate and hunt and gather and care for the species. That's what you're designed to do after millions of years of evolution. And that's the reason why during your developmental years, the body moves beyond your sense of awareness of it. Literally from first month, every movement is designed to lay the foundation for the next level of movement, whether it be laying on your back to rolling over, whether it be reaching and playing with your feet, whether it be rolling over and trying to push yourself up. Because at 4 months, little infants start to roll over, but sometimes it's not comfortable, so they like to roll back on their back because it's more comfortable. And research shows that if you get your babies on their stomachs, even when they're uncomfortable about it, they're going to cry, they're going to scream, they're not going to be happy about it, but it just triggers that next desire to want to see more and do more. And before we know it, they're pushing themselves up onto their hands and knees. This is all about core development and also brain development. And before we know it, they're sitting up. But I remember the first time, we put, like, say, my daughter in a sit-up position, and we were on a blanket on the floor. We didn't put her on a table because we knew that those muscles just weren't developed. She could possibly fall off, so we do it on the floor. And of course, she falls over the first time and cries because it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it's scary. But with that, there's a drive for her to sit back up and to struggle to sit back up, and she does. And before you know, that leads to pulling up. The child is now pulling themselves up, and they're trying to stand upright. Every phase of development is developing muscles for the next phase, whether it be the legs and the hips and the core and the brain, to start to process all this. And then soon they're holding on and they want more. They're not satisfied. They spent, 10, 11, 12 months getting to a point where they can pull themselves up, but they're not satisfied. They want more. Something's driving them beyond their consciousness to want more, to experience more, to do more. And they stand there wanting to go see something, so they're calling for mom and dad to take them. And, mom and dad's like, nope, you got to do it yourself. And that challenges them to now start to walk. So at a very young age, our body is being prepared for movement. So I hope that has illustrated the capacity of the human body. Now, many of you may say, oh, well, that's great when you're young. When I was young, I could do that. I'm older now. And you come up with a list of reasons why you can't do it. That may be your first response. I'm hoping your first response is like, wow, look at the brilliance in design and preparedness for us to be able to move. But some of you may be thinking right away, I can't do that. That's for young kids. They, are flexible. And to a certain degree, you're right. But it is the design of the human body, and it's not about age. It's about regular use. The goal is to consistently use the body in a way that it is designed to use, saying if you don't use it, you lose it. But that's not necessarily true, because we can start to regain some of that over time, but it takes consistency and it takes a plan. We've been moving this way for hundreds of thousands of years. And You may also think, well, that's just a small percentage of people. The truth is that we are actually the small percentage of people who can't move this way. There are billions of humans around the world, adults, that move this way. They're capable of sitting in a low squatted position, being on their knees, bending forward, getting up and off the floor, doing work on the floor. But they're conditioned that way and they keep using the body that way. So please eliminate the idea it's just about age. I'm not saying that with age doesn't come restrictions. We just have to learn how to understand what those are, work with them, and to hopefully improve our ability. Because if we don't, well, we see what's happening if we don't. It's very, very clear in at least Western society what's clear. Posture becomes poor. We're having spinal issues, hip issues, knee joint issues, ankle issues, foot issues, soreness and pain, numbness in arms because of pinched nerves going down through the spinal column into our hands, poor digestion. It affects our moods in a negative way, which affects our self-esteem, and also poor circulation fatigue. I mean, there's a host of health issues that we can reverse and stave off just if we start to think about the future and preparing for it now. Correct posture is possible. It does take work. You're never too old to start to address this. Core strength, core flexibility. But as we could see in the two pictures of adults in their senior aging performing very highly functional, it is possible. This helps with pain prevention. If I want to pick the future of my life when I'm over 90, I want pain prevention. I want higher mobility. I want better breathing. I want positive feelings. I want higher self-esteem. I want good circulation. I want energy efficiency. I want improved concentration. And yes, there's a part of me that's vain. I also want to look good too. And I know it's all relative to age. But what's most important is that we don't have to assume that with getting older, we get all those opposite effects, that we can work for all these good benefits of core conditioned, core flexibility, and good posture. But where does that start? It starts with awareness. Remember I said when we were first developing, and usually it's probably up to the first 30 years of life, we're just not aware. We're just moving. And the body's going to do it because there's that whole developmental stage that happens all the way into our, really, in some cases, early 20s, where we are developing the capacity of the body towards a peak physical ability. And what we don't have is a sense of awareness. We're just kind of doing it. Athletes do it for a specific reason. They want to perform a specific way. And once again, how the body looks is not necessarily the sign of good health or lasting health. So we have to prepare for a future. We have to plan for a future in this vessel. No different if we were setting up a retirement account and making it a habit to save a little bit and create diversity, because we're going to have issues. Once again, I said we can't escape pain, we can't escape gravity, we can't escape time. But we also have to be aware of those external influences that are adverse to our health. I just saw the title of a book that sitting is the new smoking, and it to a certain degree is severe health benefits if we are just in a stagnant position. Once again, it's not good for the organs, it's not good for the breathing, it's not good for the posture, it's not good for the muscles. And the same thing with our smartphones and our smart devices. The bottom illustration shows, when my head is erect, that 8 to 12 pound weight is lined up over my body. It's easier for me to balance it. But once that 12 to 8 pound weight starts to dip forward, it increases in weight. So a 15-degree tip forward can add like the weight of that. It can double of my head. It could be now 27 pounds, right? And if I'm bent forward to 16, as you're walking your world, as you're at home with your family, as you are, on the bus, on the train, waiting in line to get a coffee, look at people's postures. see how hard it is working and see how disconnected they are in the moment to it. But when that head is tipped forward at 60 degrees, that weight now is like 60 pounds. That's a lot of stress on the back, on your neck muscles. So what do we need to do? We need to go back to basics, folks. We need to go back to how we were brilliantly designed to develop and go back to basics. We need to move back towards being able to move like babies do. It is capable. We are capable of it, but it is a journey. But within that journey, we'll continue to improve strength, mobility, flexibility. I'm not an advocate for only using one modality of movement to be the answer to all our health challenges and our health, what's the word I'm looking for, ambitions. But like yoga, I don't think is for everybody, nor do I think yoga has all the answers. It's up to the individual. Same with Pilates, same with strength training, same with just flexibility training. There is no one way to move the body. I'm an advocate of learning about all the ways and picking and choosing the pieces that work for you. So going back to basics means going back to core conditioning, core strength, and learning moves and routines and building these as part of habit, not just for flexibility, but for strength and conditioning, so that we can improve our functionality, reduce pain, improve moods, all those good things that you'd like to sign up for right now, so that when you're over 80 and 90, you got those. The challenging part with this is that also means sometimes learning new things and letting go of old things. And just this in itself is an opportunity for us to also learn how to relearn. Sometimes we learn because we have to. And now you get an opportunity to learn because you want to. One of my phrases with our residents is, you didn't come with an owner's manual. So you have to learn how to use this machine and how to use it efficiently. And learning is, there's a learning curve to everything, which sometimes creates discomfort in the learning process. But if we can understand our learning process, and if you look at the bottom tile, you'll see the abbreviations. When we look at the learning curve, we look at the UI, that's what we call unconscious incompetence. Ignorance is bliss, unconscious incompetence, we don't know something. And that is what it is. But once we decide we want to learn something, or something is brought to our attention, we now go to that conscious incompetence, the awareness of, I don't know this, I don't do this well, I'm uncomfortable doing it, and this is part of the learning process. But if we're really driven to want to learn it and to apply it, we go to the conscious competence phase of our learning. And that's where we're able to apply. We start to feel confident in what we're doing. There's a certain level of expectation in what we're doing. And we can even maybe start to master it a bit with consistency. And consistency is a key piece to all of this. And then after this conscious competence, we move now into an unconscious competence, meaning that to a certain degree, there's a degree of knowing without consciously paying attention to it. And this is the learning process. And we have to be willing to be in that conscious incompetence stage and the conscious competence. Unfortunately, everybody wants to either be unconsciously incompetent or unconsciously competent. And that's not where the work is. The work is in conscious incompetence and the conscious competence. And sometimes we move in and out of that unconscious incompetence or into that conscious competence. And that can be very uncomfortable. There can be highs and lows of confidence and self-esteem challenges. But you know what? That's where we learn. And I'm a firm believer that develop the system of learning versus getting the results. You'll get the results if you embrace the learning and the application of what you're trying to learn. So going back to one of those constants, time. Time is a constant, and we can't change time, but we can decide how we're going to be with time. And so you'll see at the top I have 3 arrows. The first arrow is the red arrow, and the first arrow looks at the typical path, at least as us Westerners, we take with our lives. We graduate high school or college, we get a job, we make a couple bucks, we secure home and food and love, Maslow's hierarchies, and we kind of cruise along up into our 50s, maybe 60s, but we don't realize that as aging is happening. A lot of it's because we're stuck in our bubbles relative to our age group. So it's like watching paint. We don't really see the aging process. But with that said, it is happening. And so we're just kind of going on our merry way day to day, sometimes thinking this is going to last forever, sometimes fearing the aging, but we're not doing anything other than just riding that, you know, go-kart of time. So here's where you're just hoping that your health is going to stay or be fine. You don't really have a plan. You have a desire. You don't want to get old. You don't want to hurt, but you really don't have a plan. A lot of people go through life this way. The next green line is preventative. And that what that means is that you're conscious of the present, your present future status, right? You're conscious, in this case, I'm 57. I'm conscious that at 57, I want to stay functional, I want to stay healthy, right? And so I'm doing the things, at least doing the things that will keep me, in my mind, healthy, trim, good energy, highly productive, so that I can continue to work, care for my family, all these things. But I'm more in the moment. That stage that we want to get to is what we call more diagnosis and repair. And think of it as a car. You plan for repairs over the length of the car. You know that a car may be able to give you at least good 300,000 miles. You know that that engine needs to have oil change. You know that air filters need to be changed. You know that there's going to be probably 3 or 4 or 5 different tire changes, a battery. You know this because there's a plan for it. Now, there's some people that get that, that plan for their car and don't adhere to it. They see it as a disposable vehicle. They're going to use it for 3, 4 years, and it's someone else's problem. Well, unfortunately, the human body doesn't work like that. We are living in the human body, and therefore we have to think about planning for it and knowing that there are going to be a maintenance calendar and a maintenance schedule. So the goal is to consciously shape your future health through the ongoing learning about your body and what it needs and its capabilities, especially as it ages too. So we're just not in the moment of aging, but we're thinking down the line, and we're learning, we're understanding, we're practicing, and this is the best way we can start to actually take some control over time. So going back to this, the human core and understanding that the human core is made up of a lot of muscles. And so we have these groups of muscles. We have this pelvis area, and we have the lower back area, and we have the hips, we have the stomach. But when we really break it down, we're talking like over 20 different individual muscles, transverse abdominis, multifidus, the internal and external obliques, the erector spinae, the diaphragm, pelvic floor muscles, your abs rectus abdomen. So we have all these muscles. And if we're not aware that there is a synergistic happening going on with everything that we do, and we just focus on one muscle, one group of muscles, we're actually inviting that problem down the line. So you may say, well, how can I engage all this? What can I do? Come on, Bill, tell me what to do. We're going to get there right now. I'm a firm believer there's 2 things I want you to walk away with. First, that you're aware that you can have an influence on the future of your health. You can reduce pain, eliminate pain. You can help affect your posture, and take control, basically, not be a victim of the human body. And the second thing is that you have that awareness now. This is an awareness. It may be uncomfortable, but you have this awareness. And the second thing is you have to do something. And so before we go on to doing something, if you are so far not only just entertained, but really curious about how you can start moving better in the future with this vessel, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Click that subscribe button, because there's more of this to come. So we're going to go to what is one thing that I teach everybody that no one has ever taught anybody, and that is you can't engage all these muscles at once. It's in the sense that you can't go through a checklist in your brain and say, okay, I got my belly pulled in, I'm sucking in my my transverse abdominis, and I'm working on my posture all at once, because that could be exhausting. By the time you get to the third muscle group you're trying to engage before you do anything, you're just saying the hell with it. But there is one action you can take that will engage it all. And as you can see on the screen, if you don't know what the sphincter is, do a Google search, look it up. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but the sphincter, you're able to engage it just like a muscle. You can contract it at degrees of contraction. So this is what I tell people to get them engaged. So they're getting out of the brain, because you already know how to do this. Imagine that you're at a nice dinner you dressed up really fancy, and you get an opportunity to meet somebody that you really admire. Now, think of somebody that you really admire that you'd love to be able to meet face to face. And now you get this chance to meet them face to face at this fancy dinner. And they come up to you and they want to meet you. And they're about to extend their hand to you and shake your hand. And right as you're about to shake their hand, you realize you have really bad gas. I mean, like really bad gas. What is the thing you're going to do right now so you don't embarrass yourself? What is the thing that you're going to make sure you're going to do so that you don't embarrass yourself? That is that sphincter muscle. When you squeeze that sphincter muscle, and I invite you to do this, when you squeeze that sphincter muscle, you're going to feel everything in this core area tighten. One thought, one action. Sphincter tighten, core tighten. So try to tighten this at 100%. See what 100% is. Like you can't squeeze anymore because you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of that person you're about. And feel the tone and the tightness in there. And then let it go. Relax it. And notice what happens when you let it go. You'll notice like a drop in the posture. It will compress. Tighten it again as much as you can. And feel those muscles. And then let it go. That is a direct way to start affecting not only awareness of the core, but getting all those muscles engaged at once in 1 second. Now, you don't want to be walking around with your sphincter tight 100% all the time because A, the muscles just don't have that type of endurance. Number two, it'll look like you've got to run to the washroom. But you need to develop a degree of control, okay, in that muscle group just by tightening the sphincter. So this is what I always tell people. If you're walking, you should be at 10%. It should never be offline. Only time your sphincter contraction is offline is when you're sitting and you want the chair or the couch to hold you up, or you're laying down and you want something to hold you up. Any other time, you're engaging at least 10%. 100% contraction is going to stand up, you're going to sit down, because that's a transfer of a lot of weight. You're going up and down stairs, especially if you're carrying something. You're carrying something. You are bending over to pick something up. You're doing weight training where you're putting additional weight on this structure. That's when you want to tighten 100%. And that means you have to build endurance and strength for it to be able to handle that. Hiking, climbing, things that affect instability and balance, you want to have a degree of contraction. So you're always adjusting degree of contraction in everything that you do. But this requires an awareness and it requires practice. And you can do it. It is very possible. I've worked with hundreds of people and they walk away saying, I learned that, but man, I noticed the difference. This is at the core, literally. It's at the core of awareness. It's at the core of your body. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? So when we talk about incontinence, that's about being able to get this body to hold the bladder in place. So the gravity is not crushing on my organs and wanting to push stuff out, okay? So with that said, we need to practice this, but most importantly, we need to practice the awareness. Throughout the day, check in with yourself. Hey, what's the sphincter doing? You know, have fun with it. Oh, it's not even online. Get it online. The more you do this, the more it will start to work for you. It is almost impossible for me to just be at a zero contraction on my sphincter now because for many, many, many years, I've trained my body to at least be at 10%. Right now, I'm at 10% because it's now a habit. It is now in my unconscious competence, which is what we all want to be. When do we need to do this the most? At that highest level of 100%, sitting, standing. Okay, and this is an exercise you can, believe it or not, a movement you're going to want to do for the rest of your life. Going up and down stairs, which is a very unstable action. As a matter of fact, at one point, one leg and one hip is holding all that weight. Planks, or when you're doing weight training exercises, that's when we really need to develop 100% core contraction so that it is supporting weight. And then things like picking up and moving things, because once again, there's great risk to other parts of the body. So I'm a firm believer there's hearing, there's seeing, there's understanding, but you really don't comprehend it until you do it. The difference is in the doing. This is how we understand, and this is how it ingrains. So the goal is to train. We have to train. An athlete spends hours preparing for an event, and days and weeks and years preparing their body for that event. We are athletes in the arena of our life. We are asking our body to do activities and perform, picking up the kid, getting the groceries, exercising. We're asking our body to perform. So let's train it to perform at its best. So we need to train to regain. We need to train to maintain. We need to train to strengthen and improve. And the other solution, we get the opposite, and that is a degrading of those muscles and our sense of knowledge and connection. So we're going to be wrapping this up soon with 3 core engagements. These are elements that you need to manage really for the rest of your life. They can't go away. Now that you know this, you can't claim ignorance anymore, but you have this opportunity, and it's not going to be easy because there's always going to be distractions. You have to master awareness. That means you have to be constantly checking in with yourself and saying, what are you doing, sphincter? What's my posture doing? Let other people be reminders. You seeing someone, in the line waiting for coffee, you see them bend forward, use them as a reminder. There's a saying, people are our greatest mirrors. Oh, okay, bend over. What's my posture doing? Oh, get it up, right? Feel your body. If you're feeling stiff or ache or stagnant, check in with that sphincter. What is it doing? Oh, it's not folded at 10%. Get it up, okay? So this is going to be the first thing, mastering awareness, and this never ends. Second thing is risk assessment. You have to assess risk before you do things versus just go do it. Because once you get the injury and you have the pain, now you're not doing it. So, and then it's very convenient to say, I can't do that because I hurt my back, versus I can do this, and I took in consideration how to take care of my back. So risk assessment. There's certain activities that are higher risk. Going up and down stairs, there's more risk. Going up and down stairs while holding a laundry basket is even more risk. Going up and down stairs in my socks is even more risk. So I have to be willing to assess risk, and therefore I need to be able to adjust the degree of core engagement to meet the risk of the moment, to also reduce risk at the same time. This is another sense of awareness, but it's also it's about executing degree of engagement with your body, whether you're swimming, whether you're walking, whether you're power walking, whether you're playing pickleball. I love pickleball, just started it and I absolutely loved it. Whether you're gardening, whether you're grocery, whatever the things that you're doing, whatever you're asking your body to perform, you need to first be aware of what it's currently doing, assess risk, and then adjust how you're going to get that body in the best position to reduce risk and increase your performance. So you can do these things for the rest of your life. So working on the core just isn't about how it's going to look, right? It's about how is it going to not only perform, how you're engaged with your body, and how is it going to perform down the line? What are the habits that you're putting in place? What are the habits that you are putting in place that will pay dividends, just like investing, down the line for you? And why is this important down the line? Well, because we still live in the body. We're still going to ask it to do things. We want it to perform for us. Back in 1999, 2 doctors, Dr. Jesse Jones and Dr. Roberta Rickley, they were professors at Cal State Fullerton. In 1999, they realized that there was no measurement to understand health status in the senior population. So they spent many years, researching the study. And with this, they came up, which was called the Senior Fit Test. And like I said, this was after many years of working with age groups between 60 and 94. Now, the truth is, there is no real measurement, standard measurement of fitness and health also for under 60. It is really all guesswork. So be careful what you're getting sucked into, whether it be the celebrity trainer, whether it be the fad diet, whether it be that new piece of exercise. Be careful, okay? But with that said, there definitely is a matrix. We use it all the time in our work. And it starts from the age of 60 and goes to 94. Now we're seeing rehab residents that are beyond 94. So there are, the age groups go from 60 to 64, 65 to 69, 70 to 74, 75 to 79, 80 to 84, 85 to 89, and 90 to 94. First thing this tells me is that there's over 35 years of aging beyond 60 that has been tested for. That's now when life winds down, that's when we have the opportunity to wind it up. And that relative to age, there are standards that the body should be able to do if we take care of it. One of the most common things is standing and sitting. So one of the tests that is done is called the chair stand. It's how many repetitions can an individual do within 30 seconds. And that means without using their hands, and that means the knees not collapsing in, and that means going up and coming down without flopping down. So there's definitely some skill, control, and strength that is involved in this. And with that said, if a 64-year-old is doing 14, a man, which is in blue, and they just maintain that. They train, they stay healthy, they do the things, they stretch, and keep improving on their physical function. And if at the age of 94, they can still do those 14 sit stands, you may say, what's 14 sit stands? But you'll be surprised. If they can still do 14 at the age of 94, they're off the charts. They're highly functioning. So remember, it's relative to age, but we got to start young. We got to start young, factoring in how to stay in condition so that we can perform at a level we're performing now as we age. And even if we trim off a little bit, we're still functioning higher than our counterparts. Arm curls is another one. Once again, I see so many people throwing their shoulders when they're doing this. They get shoulder pain because they're not using the bicep. They're not stabilizing the core. They're not locking down their shoulders. They're just lifting the weight. So once again, a 60-year-old, 64-year-old who does 16, if at the age of 94 they can do 14 for a male, they are off the charts. I mean, it should give you some hope and excitement about taking control of the aging process. 2-minute step is another thing where an individual will stand in place, step, bring the knees up for 2 minutes, see how many steps they can do, which focuses on a lot of balance, conditioning, and also core strength. Believe it or not, there's a lot of core in this. And then what we call the 8-foot get up and go, where an individual gets on a chair. It's a timed event. They stand up as quickly as they can. They're going to walk 8 feet out to a marker, come back and sit down as quickly as they can. Once again, core strength is a lot of the key in these exercises. So when we're working with individuals and we start to see that they're not on the chart or they want to maintain and improve, we're always going back to that core strength and flexibility. So we have to keep in mind that this is a lifelong partnership with your body. It's not you versus your body. It's not you versus time. It's not you versus gravity. It's you with your body. And we have to keep working on balance. What I mean, the balance of the elements. Core flexibility is really important because what happens is we get too rigid, then we are not mobile. And then when the body moves out of a certain range to choose to, that's when we have strain and pain, and then we're not moving. So core flexibility is important. We have to keep working on flexibility. So there's a saying, it's better to be the bamboo that bends than the mighty oak that breaks, right? So when I think about all these people, looking all mighty in their ripped abs, like where are you going to be 30 years down the line? Because it's not uncommon for people who do a lot of sit-ups to also have back pain because they're overdeveloping one group of muscles. And core strength is also the ability for your core muscles to handle various workloads during sports, during play, day-to-day activities, exercising, even resting. I've known people hurt themselves getting out of a chair, literally sitting down, bending down and picking up something. The deconditioning happens whether you see it or not. Posture, especially when you reach past 80 and 90, you want to be able to still perform this core strengthening routine. And as time goes on, I'll be adding other variations of this routine that you can start to build upon. So let's take a look. That's good. So you've got a chance to look at a core flexibility routine, which is also good for alleviating tension, discomfort, and in some cases pain in your lower back. And you also got a chance to look at a core strengthening routine, which is really just a fundamental routine in which over time we can build challenges to it, what we call progressions to it. But ultimately, the routines are only as valuable as much as you use them. Learning is a process. And so, what really comes back to is time. We have to learn how to master our time. And as I mentioned earlier, there's three ways to go through time. One is just take it day by day. Whatever happens, happens. And what will be, will be. So hoping that your health will be or stay fine, you really don't have a plan. Well, you can't say that anymore because that's really just a form of ignorance. And you can't say that you're ignorant anymore about this. And we may know people in our lives that have kind of navigated through life this way. The next one is prevention in the moment. And that is where you're conscious of your present health, but your intentionality is more about fighting the future, fighting aging, not wanting to age. And sooner or later, that's going to catch you because, well, we are aging. We're not planning for the aging process. We're trying to fight the process. So it should be you partnering with your body versus you versus your body, you versus aging. And the phase of, I think it was a form of maturity and heightened awareness, um, is this next way of going through time. And that is where we are consciously diagnosing and repairing, thinking about the long term. We're playing the long game. So we're consciously shaping our future health through ongoing learning about our bodies, its needs, its capabilities. And it's not just for the moment, but it's a form of preparing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line so that we can function very efficiently, mindfully, well past our 90s versus just being in the moment and living in the moment. But then if we do get an injury, we get a setback, we don't know how to deal with that. So mastering time is a big part of this process, and it is a journey. Everything you do now is for the future. And I encourage you to really think about playing the long game. Let's not get out of the desperation of trying to catch up from the past. I'm 57. I should not think of myself as being 47 or 37. As much as I would like to be able to perform like I did as a competitive athlete when I was younger, I have to be honest that that's not the case. But it doesn't mean I can't perform and function well in my 50s and also prepared to do the same when I'm 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. So this is where we talk about the difference of the chronological aging, where age is just going to do what it's going to do to you. It's just going to spin and spin and spin. Or we can think about this as physiological aging. How can you intentionally influence your aging process, reducing the risks, increasing functionality, not just getting into one or two routines and think you're going to do that for the rest of your life, but what I call diversifying your mobility and your physical ability. So I'm hoping that you're taking away some insights and some inspiration, some bits of education that have sparked you to want to look at the aging process, taking care of your body, especially from the center out, through a different lens. And I'm asking you to take a call to action because this podcast will always be available, and I encourage you to, access it as much as you want because we learn things through our time. But I'm inviting you to do a challenge, a 30-day challenge, where you alternate between that core flexibility routine one day and then the core strengthening routine one day. 7 days a week for 30 days. Meanwhile, practice that core awareness and that core engagement. Always be checking in. At what degree am I engaging my sphincter? If it's doing nothing, just remind it, oh, tighten up a little bit. And it's not about being judgmental. It's just about being aware and starting to rewiring your awareness and also rewiring the body's responses. Please let me know what your start date is and when your end date is, because In the bottom in the YouTube video, you can subscribe. You can also leave comments. I want to know how you're progressing, and also let me know your experiences in this process. Take that video, those two video links, and if you need to bookmark them, copy and paste them, on a document somewhere where you can access them whenever you need them. But the hardest part is getting started, and that's the reason why we have this 30-day challenge. You can start it whenever you want. You can end it whenever you want. But I guarantee you, the more you do it, the more you're going to like it. But most importantly, you're going to see the results, and you'll reduce back discomfort. You're going to have more mobility and functionality in anything that you do. So, keep in mind, we learn through reading, we learn through watching, but we understand through the doing. So it is upon you to do, to work out of your comfort zone a little bit and do. And I'm curious what type of experiences that you have. So thank you. Be well and create your happy body for today, but also start creating your happy body for the future.